This episode of Hot Cup Cold Case contains disturbing details about a violent crime and may not be appropriate for some listeners. I'm Brant.
I'm Rachael.
And I'm Kelsey. Why did you just stick your tongue out like that?
Because the T string went almost down my throat.
Oh my God.
I did end up on the Weird Deaths Wikipedia page, and so I feel like that could potentially almost have been an entry.
Okay, well, what was the weirdest one that you
this
saw?
wasn't the weirdest one, but there was one where I think it was from like the 18th century where this girl was like, "Dad, I want a cigarette," and he was like, "No," and she's like, "I want one," and he was like, "No," and so she stole
Dad
one.
of the year right there.
Right. What a charmer. No, so she stole one, and as she was walking out of the house, she like lit it up, I think.
Oh no.
And it fell on her dress and caught her dress on
Oh my
fire. And
gosh.
she like tripped and she got like 2nd and 3rd degree burns.
Oh
I
my
think she
God.
died. Well, I know she died because it was on the Weird Death page.
Is it real deaths? Or
I think so. Oh, okay, now I have to find it.
Okay, because I thought you were going to say, like, it caught her on fire, and then she tripped and fell, and then caught the house on fire. And I
Well,
was
that's
like,
even
oh,
more
God.
tragic. So,
it just got really quiet in here. What was...
are you
What was that?
your washer or dishwasher?
Yeah, something must have
Something
been going.
was going.
Something was going. What was that?
I swear it was a dishwasher. Check to see if the dishes are hot.
It's not the dishwasher. I don't even think I shut it all the way. Was it the fridge maybe making all that noise?
Oh, it might have been the fridge making all that noise.
Lord.
Wow.
That was terrifying.
was
Why
nuts.
are my pages unresponsive?
We were just haunted by a fridge.
That was what we think.
You guys looked at each other like somebody's in the house.
It's that
And I'm like, y'all have that
peeping
weird
Tom.
married couple psychic thing. And I'm not clued in on that.
Kelsey knows that if this is a horror movie, she's the first one to
Of
go.
course.
She's like the young single
Oh,
girl.
God, of course. We know the person's right.
Oh, Kelsey's just trying to stay alive by trying to like
God.
interpret our married looks to one.
Yeah, I'm like, this is how single people survive out in the world.
You're
Off the
hilarious.
skills of married people.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Clearly.
Well, are you guys ready to do this?
No, my computer's not working.
Is it still frozen?
Dang it, Jason.
Jason, what did you do to my...
He wants you to come back.
Okay.
Jason at the Mac store, are you listening?
Oh, I hope so. I was fully expecting to see like a little note with his phone number stuck inside of my computer. And I was like, it's gonna happen.
You were just like trying to like,
I was like,
will it into
there
existence.
was really good eye contact. And I feel like,
Eye contact. Pun intended. Oh, that's so good.
I can't even help how funny I am. Oh my God. It took me a minute. Anyway.
Well, how's your computer doing?
Oh, it's back.
Okay.
And better than ever.
Well, if you're new to the podcast, this is Hot Cup.
Sorry. I was like, this is the point where I see the psychic thing break down.
Well, if you're new to the podcast, this is Hot Cup.
Cold case.
There we go.
Got it.
Nailed it.
If she wasn't going to say it, I was. Angrily.
And we are going to share with you 2 things that keep us up at night. And the first is a hot cup of something. Tonight it's tea, but sometimes it's coffee. And occasionally a warm cup of apple cider.
Delicious.
And the second thing is a cold case.
So cold.
So I've got a cold case for you tonight. And then Kelsey is going to be sharing a closed case with us.
Yes.
Followed
Open
by
and closed.
followed by some sort of weird criminal story that my wife is going to present. And none of us have any idea what the other person is about to share.
No.
I'm excited.
I did give a clue. It was a bad one. It was just the purple box emoji with the white cross.
Is that what you sent, Rach?
Yeah. I don't know why. No, I do know why.
You
We'll
sent
get
me a
into
picture
it.
of a man.
I did?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes, you did.
Did I? Oh, no, that's a gif of Zach Galifianakis.
I'm dying. So Rach never showed me the clue you sent her about the case you were going to present. But apparently you sent her a gif of Zach Galifianakis. And then you sent the clue after that, which was an emoji. That was meant to be the clue. But my wife thought Zach Galifianakis was the clue.
Okay, and I didn't know who that was.
Well,
and I didn't even know
it's
who that was.
Zach Galifianakis in period clothing with like Tom Brady, Justin Bieber hair.
I've seen this gif before.
It looks like it's from the 70s, so I was thinking it was the Michigan, serial killer.
Oh, the Oakland County one?
Yes.
No. So I sent the gif, and I said, I'll give you a hint about one of my cases. And then I did the purple box with the white cross emoji.
No, sure did not see that one. I just saw that guy.
Sorry, y'all.
I didn't know who that was, so...
Oh,
it was
my
I
God.
told Brant, I said, yeah, she sent me a hint, and it was a picture of some guy. I don't know who it is.
It's my favorite.
So do you guys want a clue to the cold case I'm going to share with you tonight?
Yes, please.
Please don't make it a gif.
No, dude.
And thoroughly confuse my wife.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, no, this is a case about a secret admirer that goes terribly wrong.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. This is the case of Dorothy Jane Scott. I'm going to take you guys back to the 1980s.
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Dorothy Jane is a 32-year-old single mom. She and her 4-year-old son, Sean, are living with her aunt, Shanti, in Stanton, California. So we're in California in the 80s. Dorothy's a single mom.
Okay.
And she works as a secretary for a store that her father used to own. Her ex lives in Missouri. This would be Sean's dad, and he's no longer a part of their lives.
Okay.
So Dorothy's parents, Vera and Jacob, often take care of her son, Sean, while she's working really hard to provide for Sean.
Mm-hmm.
So Dorothy would date men on occasion, but for the most part, her family and friends say that she's a very religious person, the kind of person that would rather stay home than attend social gatherings. So one day, Dorothy gets a strange phone call and enter our secret admirer. It's an unknown man, and he's expressing his infatuation with her.
Ew.
But soon, Dorothy begins receiving calls from the same anonymous stranger, not only while she's at home with her son and her aunt, but even when she's at the shop where she works.
No.
Yeah.
And all the ladies in the room go, no. No.
Yeah, and it starts getting worse. So Dorothy tells her parents, Vera and Jacob, about these calls, but there's not really much anyone can do to help her. It's the 1980s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a call is just a call.
A call is just a call in the 1980s. So
Could
the
you
calls...
do Star 69 in the 80s?
Star
I
69?
don't think they had caller ID.
Yeah, I don't think the caller ID was invented yet. Actually, I know it wasn't, because in the 90s, I remember when we first got caller ID, and my dad was so pumped.
It's like...
It just showed, that was when it just showed the number that was calling you.
Yeah,
so
not
you could like
even-
look at the area code and see who it was coming from.
Oh, that's
So funny.
And I remember like I had my dad's work number memorized, because if my dad's work ever called us, my parents had trained us to not answer the phone, so dad didn't have to go into work. Because they would call him they would call him to come in
Yeah.
to fill in for others. And so we would just anytime that the phone would ring, the whole house would grow quiet, almost as if we were afraid they could hear us.
They knew.
Just because they were calling.
So they had somebody like staked outside your house.
So there's not much Dorothy's parents can really do to help her, and the calls keep coming, and they become increasingly more disturbing.
No.
The man would sometimes describe what she was wearing
That day.
No. We would be moving.
or even where she had been
No.
and what she was doing.
I really don't like that.
And here's the thing that haunted Dorothy the most. She seemed to recognize the voice,
No.
but couldn't put a face to it.
That's my worst nightmare.
Right?
That is my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
It's like forgetting something, knowing you had something and like misplacing it, and it's just always nagging you in the back of your mind. And except for this, it's like a scary, scary man watching you.
Yeah. So Dorothy is not only haunted by this caller, but she's haunted by the voice itself because she thinks she recognizes it, but she's not really sure.
No.
So Dorothy knows she's being watched, but her stalker begins expressing violent desires that he has to murder her.
Oh, gosh.
So during one phone call in particular, he actually told Dorothy, yeah, this is gross.
Oh, right.
He told Dorothy that he would get her alone and dismember her.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so these calls have escalated now
Lord
from
Almighty.
infatuation to threats of violence. It's really, really, really scary. So in May 1980, Dorothy begins attending self-defense courses.
Good for her.
You go, Dorothy.
Self-defense courses in the 1980s. I literally picture Rex Kwando from Napoleon Dynamite.
Like those parachute pants, the 80s colors.
Oh,
Yes.
Neon windbreakers.
Yeah.
Lots
like-
of whooshing.
This is like Brant's dream right now. Like,
Oh my God. What I would give.
So Dorothy not only begins attending these self-defense courses. What just happened? I feel like I missed something. Oh, Kelsey's covered in tea. I looked down for just a second. Your tea is no longer in its
child.
cup. It's all over your shirt.
all over.
Now I'm wiping it up with Rachel's bird. Booger wash.
I wiped my face, my nose for 1
It's
second.
fine. It's fine. Sorry, everybody.
So in addition to her 80s self-defense courses, her Rex Kwando, Dorothy even considers purchasing a firearm. And on Wednesday, May 28th, 1980, Dorothy attends a meeting at her work where one of her coworkers who was at the meeting, his name's Conrad Bostrom, and she can tell that he's not feeling well. And she starts to grow more concerned when she notices a unexplainable rash that has developed on his forearm.
Ew.
Yeah, gross. So her and another one of her coworkers, Pam Head is her name, are really concerned about Conrad, and so they volunteer to drive him to the emergency room at UC Irvine Medical Center nearby.
No.
And on the way, Dorothy stops by her parents' house, and this is really important. She wants to tell them what happened because she doesn't have a cell phone. It's the 80s. And I think this is really responsible of her to stop by her parents' house and say, hey, I'm not going to be at work. My coworker is sick. I'm going to take him to the hospital. So if you need me, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And while she's at her house, I think she changes out of her, maybe she had like a work uniform or something, but we know she changes clothes. And in particular, she grabs a red scarf. And that's important for you guys to remember.
Remember the red scarf.
Okay.
So Dorothy and Spam. I think,
Spam.
I mean, you might as well be called Spam if your name's Spam. Sorry.
I wonder if we have any. We're gonna get messages from all the Pams out there who are listening to us now.
Pams.
Pam, don't spam us.
Pam, don't be a spam.
Pam, don't be a spam.
Ugh.
Oh, God.
So Dorothy and Pam check Conrad into the emergency room, and then they spend the remainder of the day in the hospital's waiting room.
Shoot, just drop him off. He's a grown man. Like, leave him there.
It's not a baby.
It's just a rash. Like, it's not like it's a head injury.
Well, they find out that it's more than just a rash.
God, maybe it's dying.
Like what?
He had a black widow spider bite.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
So he is dying.
Yeah, so I mean, it
Well,
was serious. And these are really good friends. They just hang out in the emergency waiting room all
Yeah,
day.
unless
You can tell.
he is the creeper, and then
Well,
we'll see what happens.
Well,
maybe Pam's not Pam. What's the lady's name again?
Spam?
No.
Dorothy?
Dorothy. Maybe she's the Black Widow.
Ooh.
Oh.
No, she's definitely not. She's the victim.
Dang it.
Oh.
So around 11 o'clock that night, Conrad is released with a prescription from his doctor. And Dorothy suggests that Conrad and Pam head to the pharmacy that's next door to the hospital while she goes to get her car
No, Dorothy.
from the hospital
Dorothy,
parking lot.
if you're the one receiving scary phone calls, we now know you're not allowed to go anywhere by yourself.
I know.
Yeah, come on, Dorothy.
But you know what? I applaud her. She's like, I'm going to maintain my independence. I'm not going to let this ruin my life.
And she's like, I went to Rex Kwon Do, so
That's
bring it
true.
on.
Dang, girl.
So what happens next literally sounds like a scene from an 80s horror movie.
Oh.
Dorothy
Great.
heads out to the hospital parking garage at 11 o'clock at night by herself.
No.
And a few minutes later, Conrad and Pam came out of the pharmacy expecting to find Dorothy's car waiting for them, but she wasn't there. So after waiting there for a couple minutes, I think, they decided they're going to head back to the parking lot where Dorothy had parked. And upon entering the parking lot, Pam and Conrad suddenly see Dorothy's car speeding towards them
No.
Great.
with the headlights on full beam, so they cannot see who is driving.
No.
That is.
And the car swerves past them erratically before exiting the parking lot and just disappearing into the night. So Pam and Conrad are surprised, but they said they thought maybe Dorothy had left in response to some kind of emergency involving her 4-year-old son, Sean. That's the only thing they could think of that would explain why she may have just driven off in such a hurry.
Well, they don't have cell phones either
Yeah.
back then.
Right. So they're stranded. They decide to return to the hospital and wait for Dorothy to come back. But a couple hours later, Dorothy hasn't arrived. So Pam and Conrad decide to call Dorothy's parents, Vera and Jacob, in the hopes that they might know more about what's happened. And after learning that her parents hadn't heard from her either, Pam and Conrad immediately contacted the police. A few hours later, around 5 a.m. the next morning, because remember, they've been in the hospital all night now, Dorothy's vehicle is discovered 10 miles away.
No.
It's been abandoned in a back alley,
It's not a very good
and it's
sign.
engulfed in flames.
What?
No.
Yeah. So over the next few days, Dorothy's family and friends begin to fear the worst, obviously. And those fears are given a voice, literally,
Great.
when Dorothy's mother, Vera,
Oh,
receives a strange phone call.
No.
I don't like this at all.
An anonymous man calls and claims that he has murdered her daughter.
No.
Vera immediately calls the police. Investigators they ask her to keep the details surrounding her daughter's disappearance away from the media because they're hoping to avoid any false leads and confessions.
Yeah.
But after a week had gone by and there's no new leads on the case, Vera and Jacob are understandably desperate.
Yeah.
And they actually decided to contact a local newspaper called the Santa Ana Register. And they published an article in the newspaper offering $2,500 for any information that would lead to their daughter's whereabouts. Meanwhile, investigators are hoping they can trace the caller's location because they know this caller is reaching out to Vera now. So they install a voice recorder in Vera and Jacob's phone, and they're hoping that he's going to call again,
Yeah.
which he does.
Of course he does.
Oh my gosh.
But not Vera. This time, on June 12th, Pat Riley, which is the newspaper's editorial manager, gets a strange phone call
'Cause he
from an anonymous
knows.
stranger.
Oh, God, he knows.
The caller said, quote, "I killed her. I killed Dorothy Scott. She was my love. I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else. I killed her."
Oh, no.
And then the caller went on to provide details about the night Dorothy disappeared,
Not a fan of that.
including Conrad's spider bite and Dorothy's red scarf.
No.
He even claimed Dorothy had called him from the hospital prior to her disappearance.
Wait, Dorothy called him?
That's what he said.
Well, I don't believe him.
Yeah. I think this guy has proven he's untrustworthy at this point.
At least.
So Pam later refuted the caller's claims because she said that Dorothy had been with her the entire time they were at the hospital that night. She said there's no way Dorothy called anyone from the hospital. I think they were apart for one moment, and that was when Dorothy had to use the restroom. And as we all know, there was no cell phones and there's no payphone in the hospital restroom. So Pam is convinced there's no way Dorothy called anybody from the hospital.
Yeah.
And over the next few years, Dorothy's mother, Vera, would continue to receive those strange phone calls.
I'm sorry, did you say years?
Over the next few years.
No.
That is...
And what makes it even weirder is it was every single Wednesday.
What?
Yeah, it wasn't just at random times. It was like every single Wednesday she would get a strange phone call from the same anonymous man. And police, remember, they had installed this tracer on her phone, but they're never able to pinpoint the caller's location because the calls were always too brief. Sometimes he would simply say, "I've got her," before hanging up. And then other times he would claim he had killed her.
What?
So police weren't sure if she was alive or dead. 4 years later, in August of 1984, a construction worker who's working about 15 miles away from the hospital where Dorothy was last seen comes across the remains of a dog.
Oh.
But after removing the dog remains from the site, he discovers a second set of remains buried below them,
No.
along with a turquoise ring, which helped them identify the body as that of Dorothy Jane Scott.
No.
And they also discovered a wristwatch with Dorothy's remains that had stopped at exactly 12:30 a.m. on the night she had gone missing.
What?
So they believe that Dorothy may have been dead all along, that the killer probably killed her
That night.
immediately. And an autopsy was performed, but due to the state of Dorothy's remains, the coroner is unable to determine the cause of death. So to this day, Dorothy's case remains unsolved.
Oh, that's devastating.
But I will leave you with this last little detail. There is some circumstantial evidence that points to a suspect.
Who do they think it is?
So it's possible. Now, there's no physical evidence. This is all circumstantial evidence.
Okay.
But it's possible that Mike Butler could have been the killer. And do you remember when I told you that Dorothy felt like she had heard the voice before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This might explain that. Because he was the brother of somebody she worked with. Which
So-
means it's entirely possible she heard his voice at some point, but wasn't familiar enough with it to recognize it over a phone. And so not only that, but he was reportedly, he reportedly had an unhealthy obsession with her.
Really?
Okay, so why did they never question him?
Do we know if their paths ever crossed? Or if he ever called the store and was totally taken with her voice or something?
We don't really know. Like I said, all of the evidence is circumstantial. Obviously, if he was infatuated with her, their paths must have crossed at some point.
Yeah.
I think some articles I read said he may have even worked like nearby. But the fact that his sister worked at the same shop that Dorothy did might also explain why the caller seemed to know Dorothy's work schedule. because he would call her while she was at work. So he was a person of interest, but police were never really able to consider him a suspect because there was absolutely no physical evidence, and there isn't any to this day that ties him to this crime. It's all circumstantial.
This is crazy.
This is my worst nightmare.
Yeah. And that is the cold case of Dorothy Jane Scott.
Kind of a bummer to start off with.
This is why we end with a closed case.
I knew what I was getting myself into, but then just being like, and nobody knows what happened to her. That's it.
There's no closure.
There's
None.
no closure.
And imagine how the families feel. Like, there's no closure for us just telling this story. I can't even imagine how the families feel.
And then being taunted with it for years after. Did
Right.
they stopped after 4 years, though?
Well, Vera and Jacob eventually passed away
Oh. Okay.
without ever having any type of closure about who took their daughter and why. And I think that Mike Butler eventually passed away as well.
Yeah.
I believe that there's an obituary online, and some reports I read said really the only information you can glean from it is that he was a religious man. There was some things I read online, which, PSA, believe everything you read online, right?
Yeah, I know.
There was some reports I read that alleged he was interested in, that he was a part of a cult, that he was a part of some kind of cult activity. And they also mention in the same breath that could also explain the remains of a dog that were buried on top of her, like some sort of animal sacrifice.
Wait, what? This literally, like you said, this literally sounds like an 80s horror movie.
Right. I don't know if her story has been made into a movie, but the elements of her story are iconic horror film themes.
Yeah. I can't even. Oh my god.
God, that was horrible.
Thanks,
So-
Brant.
How about some closure, Kelsey?
Yeah, let's do that.
You got a closed case for us.
Yeah, I do.
Something about Zach Galifianakis?
It's so yes,
What kind of name is that?
Greek. Galifianakis. Duh. You don't know that?
I'm getting real tired of y'all.
I can't help it that you're not up to date on your last name origins.
Galifianakis.
Go ahead, look it up. I'm right.
I don't.
So, okay, back to the clue
Yes,
that I
the
gave
clue.
you. So, we're going to do a case called either the Resurrectionists. That's hard to say. Get it with the cross? Not Zach
Oh,
Galifianakis.
the emoji is all making sense now.
Yeah, Zach Galifianakis, our Lord and Savior. Or it could also Resurrectionists were also called body snatchers, or the London Burkers in particular.
Oh gosh.
Ooh.
So I'm stealing your phrase from before, but buckle up, Buttercup, because we are getting in the flux capacitator and going all the way back to 1831.
Oh my god.
It felt like you were trying to make some 80s references that you had no clue about.
I've never seen Back to the Future.
You never should have attempted it. You never.
I'm like,
knocking on our door?
you gotta stay hip with the
Hold on.
kids, right?
Rach is hearing more sounds.
Oh, great.
Did someone knock at the door? Stop that. Or did you like hit the thing?
I might have hit it in my laughing fit. Okay. Let's get down to business.
Brass tacks. Never understood that.
What?
You never heard that
Brass
saying?
tacks?
No.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
Never.
I honestly can't explain it,
I'm
but
sure
I know
it
it's a
has. I'm sure it has some revolutionary roots, or
You know,
maybe Roman roots. I don't know.
I'm
Who
very
uses brass?
confused
thing. Zach
about
Galifianakis would probably know.
this whole.
I was about to
Nice.
say a prayer to Zach Galifianakis. and I
Okay,
was
your mom would kill you.
my mother. Mom, I love you. She's never gonna listen to this. Are you kidding me?
Really? Oh, that's really hoping she would.
No.
Cynthia, are you listening?
Yeah. Are you
Cynthia, I
there?
love you.
We love you, but you're not allowed to listen to this.
Stop listening right
Stop. Just mom, hang up right now.
now. Hang up.
Right now. Right now.
My mom thinks a podcast is like phone calls. She doesn't, but she's like, Kelsey, how do I get to my podcast again?
So you were speaking to her in terms she would understand.
Yes, just hang up.
Hang up.
Turn your phone off and throw it out the window.
Oh my god.
Please. All right. Okay, so we are in Nova Scotia Gardens, which is a part of the East End in London. So it's a couple nights before November 5th, which, if you don't know what November 5th is, all of our UK listeners, I don't know if there are any of you, but if you're there, you know what November 5th is because it's Guy Fawkes Night.
Oh.
Have you heard of this?
Well, I saw V for Vendetta, which is about Guy Fawkes, right?
Guy as in like Fox spelled Fawkes.
I don't know. Did you see V for Vendetta? I may have just made a
No.
movie reference. Okay.
I've heard of it.
Okay, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I was realizing that I was thinking, I was about to say, oh, there's a Mini Cooper in that. And I'm like, no, that's the Italian.
Job. No, I was thinking the same thing, though. Oh, man.
Oh,
Wow.
my God.
The movies that you guys have seen that take place on foreign soil
A lot of them.
apparently
they're
are
all
The
in-
Italian Job
Yeah.
and
The
not much else.
The Lizzie McGuire movie. Anyway, so let's just establish the setting. We're in Nova Scotia Gardens, the East End of London, in 1831, right? We're going way back.
We are
Wow.
going way back.
We are going way back.
I see the need for that flux capacitor now.
Yes. See, buckle up. I'm stealing your catchphrase. Sorry, I'm appropriating it.
It's yours.
Thank you. So, Nova Scotia Gardens, in case you weren't aware, was actually used as an extraction site for clay. So they would, this all makes sense. Hold on. Don't give me that look, Rachel. So they would extract the clay, they would use it to make bricks. And because, like, 17th and 18th century, Englishmen were really good at taking care of the planet. They would strip the earth of all of its possible resources. So when the land was completely rid of clay, they would just be like, okay, we'll just, throw our human excrement and waste
Ugh,
here.
It's so disgusting.
Wow.
It's so gross. But so there is all of this unusable land, right? That nobody else wants to live on. So guess who starts living there? The poorest of the poor, because they can't afford land anywhere else.
Right.
And
Yikes.
yeah, so they're literally living in these clay fields that have been layers and layers of leastall, I think it's called, and waste and human excrement has just been thrown there.
Ugh.
So people set up cottages, and it was prime real estate for London's garbage people and the poorest of the poor. And because they had dug down in the earth and extracted so much of the clay, it flooded really easily.
Oh, no.
Because it was at a slightly lower elevation.
Ugh.
So, as we know, unfortunately, poorer communities tend to be crime tends to breed there, which is unfortunate but true.
Yeah.
Did I say this was going to be more of an upper? Because I think I might have, and I'm wrong. Clearly.
You really set yourself up for failure there.
Guys,
I got a
I'm gonna
feel-good story for you guys.
You are going to feel so much better after this.
So,
Human excrement.
let me set the
Poverty.
scene. It's a pit of human waste and crime.
And guess what? There's
There's
gnats
poverty.
everywhere, and no amount of apple cider vinegar is going to get rid of them. So November 5th, 1831, Nova Scotia Gardens, there's this 10 and 14-year-old brother and sister. They see this young Italian boy. He's waving at them and trying to get their attention, but he didn't speak English very well. And they were, I think, doing their chores, and they were like, wait, what is he? Oh, we can't understand what he's saying. And so that was the last time that they ever saw this young boy, which I think his name was, what was it? Oh, Carlo Ferrari. I don't know. I can't speak Italian.
It was a good effort.
Thank you.
We'll call him Ferrari.
We'll call him Carlo Ferrari. I would try to roll my R's, but I can't. So that was the last time they ever saw him again. Now, outside of the Nova Scotia Gardens, not outside of, but in terms of cultural setting, we're going to move to another lighthearted subject. Cadavers.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So I literally wrote cadavers were a hot commodity in the 17th century.
Wow.
But it's true. And it shouldn't be the 17th century. It should be the 18th century. No, 19th century, because it's 1831. In the 19th century. So because it was, I think it was the tail end of the Age of Enlightenment, but there was a lot of scientific exploration and medical exploration. So there was a lot of colleges and hospitals that would use cadavers so people could practice dissecting to learn about the human body. And why can't I think of the word when you operate, like learning how to operate on people?
Yes.
Surgeries. So it wasn't uncommon for people to bring cadavers to colleges and schools of anatomy and college or and hospitals to say, hey, here's a body for your students to practice on, and then they would get like 12 shillings. Like that's somebody's job.
Wow.
So
now,
crazy.
where did they get these cadavers?
Yes.
So a lot of the cadavers were gathered from executions or hangings.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but as executions, especially public executions, I believe became less and less frequent into the 19th century. So the demand was still as high, but because they didn't have as many people that they were executing, they didn't have the cadavers to supply, which, as we know, when there's a high demand for something and a low supply, what happens?
Yikes.
Class, what happens?
They go get them.
They go get them.
So disgusting.
It's bad. All right. So we're going to we're going to establish who our key players are.
Okay.
For these body snatchers. So we've got the quadfecta. Not a trifecta, because it's a quadfecta.
It's better than a trifecta.
It's a quadfecta. It sounds so bad. So, and it's like the white breadest of white names ever, because it's 19th century England. So we've literally got Thomas Williams, John Bishop, Michael Shields, who is a Covent Garter porter, and James May, an unemployed butcher, which at that point, are you just unemployed? Like,
he's really clinging on to that
he's
butcher
like,
identity.
I'm a butcher. It's like when I'm an actor. It's just, I work at Starbucks right now.
I'm currently between butchings.
Yeah. I'm more of like an animal butcher, but now I'm like maybe moving into like the human kind.
Oh,
Oh God, is that
disgusting.
where this is going?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
gosh.
Okay.
Foreshadowing.
So we've got
For butching.
we've got Williams, Bishops, Shields, May. So many English names. Okay. So the cadaver market was so profitable that Williams, Bishop, May, and Shields could simply not resist. So they became quite notorious in their body snatching efforts. So they would go around to graveyards and cemeteries and exhume corpses from the graves. And they would take them to like St. Bartholomew's Hospital, St. Thomas Hospitals, King College, and they would sell the cadavers to anatomists, researchers, and surgeons. Which at some point they knew that, as you'll see later on, they had to know that these people had been dead for a while,
Right.
which would only lead them to assume you're probably going up like to cemeteries and digging up
Right.
Grave
digging up people's loved ones.
But like you said,
But
the
you know
demand
what?
was so high.
We need them to teach our up and coming medical students how to operate on people. So I guess it's fine. So they became so notorious, they were known as the London Burkers or Resurrectionists or Body Snatchers, which that one's not as interesting.
I think that one was my favorite.
Body Snatchers?
I thought this was going to go in a completely different way.
See, I love to give the twists and turns.
Okay.
Whatever happened to Ferrari?
Well, this leads us to Saturday, November 5th, 1831.
Guy Fawkes Day.
Guy Fawkes Day. So May and Bishop bring a quote. This is what I saw quoted on quite a few websites. A suspiciously fresh body of a young boy to King's College dissection room. And the porter noticed that this body was not like the other cadavers.
Oh, no.
As we said prior, it was suspiciously fresh.
This is where I thought this was going.
Yikes.
Yeah. So the porter rings up the demonstrator of anatomy, which is a weird job title to have,
Yes.
to check out the body. So the demonstrator of anatomy for King's College then calls the professor of anatomy, and he takes a look at the body, and he goes, I should probably call the police.
Call the coppers.
Literally, he's like,
See it. Say it.
don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
Even though you work with cadavers, and this isn't technically that weird, but it is, because it's suspiciously fresh. Describing a body as fresh is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
So
again,
disrespectful,
but it brings us back to the butcher.
I gotta tell you what I keep picturing in my mind
What's
for this. What was this day called?
Guy Fawkes.
Yeah, I can only think of that scene from Twilight when Bella has to go rescue Edward from.
Oh, the
somewhere.
Italian ones?
Yeah, that's the scene I keep seeing is when.
So lots of robes. And
yes, it's that day where.
I guess think more like
Can't remember.
Dickensian.
I don't know what that means.
Like Dickens.
She's like, you lost me at Dickensian.
Like Charles Dickens, like high collars and like white ruffly things, and like everyone's like,
Well, that one guy looked like
Which
that.
is actually a perfect impression
thank
of
you.
a Dickensian.
I've been practicing.
Well, the one Volturi guy looks like that
Oh,
with the long hair. Remember?
the Italian one,
I don't remember.
Michael Sheen. He plays one of them. I remember him. I was like, you're too good of an actor to be in these movies. What are you doing
All
here?
right, let's look it up.
Get out of here with your good acting.
What?
Trying to
Come
watch
on.
Twilight.
Come on,
Y'all
man.
leave me alone. It was so great.
Think like A Christmas Carol.
Oh, okay.
Oy
Well,
vey.
I don't. Never mind. We'll talk about
I
this
don't
later.
read.
No, that's rude. Both of
Hey,
you.
It's
Rach
not-
read the entire Twilight Saga
Shut up.
in its fullness. And all the fan.
And she
Stop
wrote
it.
so much fan fiction.
Yeah.
It's not even funny.
I hate both of you. Thank
This
you very much.
this is the We Make Fun of Rachel podcast.
I know. That is what it feels like today.
I'm
But
sorry.
y'all just wait. I'll wait till next time. It's fine.
Okay, so the police then come and take May and Bishop, the body snatcher, people that just tried to sell them a freshly or
Ugh.
suspiciously fresh corpse, into custody. 2 weeks passed, and their cottage back in Nova Scotia Gardens was searched by the police. And so they found several articles of clothing in a well in the area,
Wow.
which then leads them to believe that this young boy that they brought to King's College was not the only person that they had killed. So the police then take Williams and Shields, the two of the group that weren't in on the body dumping at the body selling, maybe should we say. So they take them into custody with Bishop and May, and they were all questioned by the police. And so during their interrogation, they admitted to 2 other murders. The murder of a woman named Frances Pigburn, which is an unfortunate last name.
That is unfortunate.
And then
Wait. A woman named Frances Pigburn
Pigburn.
was killed by an unemployed butcher.
Oh my gosh.
This stuff writes itself, guys.
Maybe he just got confused. I don't know.
Stephanie Meyer, eat your heart out.
Come on. Truth is stranger than fiction. And then there was another, like, I think he was 13 or 14, another young boy that they had killed, and his name was Cunningham. We're back.
Oh my gosh.
God, we're awful.
It's been a while. It's been almost 200 years.
Is it too soon?
So apparently the body snatcher group had taken both Francis and Cunningham back to the Nova Scotia garden. So they kidnapped him. They drugged him with a mixture of warm beer, sugar, rum, and laudanum, which apparently, I looked this up. Laudanum is a tincture of opium containing approximately 10% powdered opium by weight, which is the equivalent of 1% morphine. So they had been drugged, and then the men hung Francis and Cunningham upside down and drowned them
Oh my God.
in the well. Because think about it, they couldn't do anything to physically harm the bodies, right?
Right.
Otherwise, they couldn't sell them.
I hate drowning. I hate drownings.
And you're not only are you drowning, you're suspended.
No.
And let's
hate
face
that.
it, wells are probably like 30 or 40
Oh my
feet
God,
deep.
that is terrifying.
Okay, stop.
But also think about what are wells used for? That's somebody's drinking water.
Oh my
Ew.
gosh.
So gross.
This is it's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh, that is. I'm picturing this whole scene, and they're in the 19th century, and it's really creeping me out right now.
There's no good way. There's no good way. So in one of the confessions that Bishop gave, he estimated. So I should mention that the group was in the business of body snatching. They were like running their operation for about 12 years.
What?
What?
And they weren't caught till 1831. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So he estimated that over their 12-year body snatching period that they stole anywhere from 500 to 1,000 corpses.
No.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
No wonder they're so prolific.
Yeah.
The
They're
body
kind of a big
snatchers.
deal.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So scary. So after they had admitted to the murders, which let's face it was the murders that they got in for, not like the body snatching. That's not the part that they were
Of
Right.
course not.
that they were punished for. So Bishop, Shields, and May were then all tried together, and I said like the pack of frat boys that they were, because they totally are. But only Bishop and Williams were convicted. So they were the only ones convicted because they thought that the other ones were just
Along for the ride.
Yeah, they were like the mules taking the bodies to the places that would buy them.
Oh my gosh.
And Bishop was only 33 and Williams was 26. So if they had been doing this for 12 years,
Yeah,
it
that's
would have meant
crazy.
it would have meant Williams had been doing it since he was 14 and Bishop since he was 21.
Yikes.
Mm-mm.
Ooh.
So on December 5th, 1831, Thomas Williams and John Bishop were hanged in front of a crowd of 30,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And as fate would have it, when
used
they were
his
dead,
body
when
for
they-
science.
when they were dead, their bodies were cut down and were sent to King's College for dissection.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And
Yeah.
that
Irony.
is the story of the London Burkers, aka the Resurrectionists, aka body snatchers,
That's
AKA
nuts.
butchers.
the
The
unemployed
butchers.
butchers. Oh my God.
Oh, so terrible, so interesting. I love history.
That was a good story.
That was a good story.
You liked it?
I mean,
Yeah, no, that was really
I thought
good.
you guys were gonna be bored by
no,
it.
definitely
Not at all. Not at all.
That was crazy.
That
Yeah.
one will haunt me.
People, yeah. I mean, a 14-year-old kid, like, digging up bodies and ugh,
Yeah.
no.
Ooh,
No,
that
no,
one's
no, no.
gross.
Yeah, that's
So
scary.
gross.
You're welcome.
Mm-mm.
That's my closed case.
Case closed.
Bam.
We got him, guys.
Body snatchers snatched.
Oh my god.
Oh.
So Rach has a mugshot story for us.
It's so crazy.
I'm so excited. I'm not reading your computer screen.
Okay, so I found this one the other day and I just thought it was hilarious. So I'm really gonna mess up these names and
I
I
can help
so
ya.
apologize.
Oh, we butcher names on this podcast. That's what we
Hey.
do.
Alright, is this-
Didn't even realize it.
So this 26-year-old Windsor man, and for those of you who don't know, there's a Windsor-Detroit border into Canada, so it's super close. 26-year-old Windsor man appeared in federal court on Thursday on charges that he attempted to smuggle 51 reptiles allegedly strapped to his groin and legs.
What? That is not where I
I'm
thought
sorry.
that story was
Also,
going.
did you say Thursday?
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say 51? Like, it's one thing to have one iguana strapped to your thigh. How do you get 50?
And that
They're
is
not iguanas. I didn't say it was an iguana.
You said reptiles. I'm just picturing iguanas.
Oh.
But also, why
Okay,
the
hold
groin?
on.
Why not a
So-
midsection? Just say like, I have a weird condition.
Oh my god. Okay, and
Like,
I
why
was
choose the most sensitive place?
okay.
I'm very confused.
You're going to have
I have
to.
a
You're gonna have to edit out Thursday though. Okay,
Okay.
because this was I didn't realize, but it was actually this article was published in 2014.
Okay,
Okay, so on a Thursday in 2014.
maybe it could have been a Tuesday, but
I'm
who's
sorry.
counting?
I thought it was recent, so my bad.
That's why I was like, this just happened.
No, it didn't. But it's the Detroit News from 14, so it's fine. Okay, anyway, so you...
Did y'all hear something?
I heard something.
I did too.
We do live in an apartment, and when it's very quiet, you can
Do you
hear
have
it.
unemployed butchers near you?
I think it was probably someone just shooting
Oh,
me.
that frightened me terribly. All right, let's
Okay.
get back to your reptile man.
Anyway, so Zhu strapped 51 reptiles to his groin and legs
Dear God.
during a failed border crossing.
Was he sitting down? He must have been just...
No, so his plan was foiled when the security officers found the reptiles hidden in his sweatpants.
Can you imagine
And-
being the security officer that did that pat down?
Oh.
Yes. Okay.
I'm sorry,
God.
sir. Is this a snake I feel in your pants?
What?
Okay, so they were.
The awkward laughter.
Listen.
I was about to say, are you just happy to
God, y'all are so crazy.
Is that an iguana or are you just happy to see me?
Okay, they were neither of those. They were turtles.
I'm sorry. Do I feel 51 shells on your leg?
Was he hoping you would just look extremely buff?
He's like, I don't know, it's some weird steroid?
It's muscles, I swear they're not turtles. Sarah, why are your muscles moving?
Oh,
my
I think one just
God.
bit me.
Okay, so he tried to fly to Shanghai with a friend, and the friend had over 200 turtles hidden in his luggage.
Wow.
So apparently,
Do you have a picture of this?
no.
Oh, never mind.
They just have little turtles in the article. It's cute. But apparently there was a demand internationally, particularly in Asia, for turtles
So-
as food or pets.
Ooh.
So this is the story of the turtle snatchers.
Oh,
Literally.
turtle snatchers,
Mhm,
supply and demand.
It
Strikes again.
We're
kind of.
basically an economics
Yeah,
podcast at
it
this
really
point.
is. But one species of these turtles that were found in Zhu's groin area
We gotta make that motion.
can go for as much as $800 each.
Wow.
Yeah.
The
How big
turtle.
was he?
So they're like a North American species. They're called There's an endangered spotted turtle and a red-eared slider.
Holy crap.
And then there's these eastern box turtles and diamondback terrapins.
What?
I don't know if I said that
sounds
right.
like a spider.
So he was charged with smuggling, illegal trading, and exporting. And he could have gotten up to 10 years in prison. This was at DTW.
Oh, so he was flying.
Yeah, he was trying to fly.
How comfortable could that be? Well, here, logistically, you got him just strapped to the front part of your legs?
So you can sit down on the plane, I'm assuming.
Because I don't think squished turtles are going to sell for $800. I'm not an expert, though. Were they strapped to him or were they just shoved in his pants?
Okay, so they were strapped to him.
I like how you have a definitive answer for this.
They were strapped to him.
How?
In baggies and tape.
Wow.
Like sandwich baggies. They settled on 57 months, but the judge did praise Shu for becoming fluent in Spanish while in prison and helping his Hispanic inmates.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
See,
so maybe he turned his life around.
Yeah, you can do good anywhere. Maybe, you know what? Shu probably just really needed to make some fast cash.
You know, it sounds like prison really brought him out of his shell.
You waited too long for that, and I'm mad I didn't get to it first. But he's so shellfish to do that.
Y'all are so stupid.
Can't believe you got to that pun first. It's so annoying.
Guys, I'm a dad. The dad jokes just come naturally now.
It's so frustrating because I want to be a dad, but I can't give dad jokes.
The cops were on to Shu. So they were surveilling him in Detroit.
He had a surveillance?
After he came over the border. So after picking up a box at a UPS store in Novi, he hid behind trucks and emerged with irregularly shaped bulges under his sweatpants. That's how they figured it out.
That's great. That is so great.
Okay, but despite the bust, he didn't even cease smuggling turtles. He didn't even slow down, they said. He's been in custody since his arrest, and he's also pled guilty to 6 crimes in the federal court in Ann Arbor and faces a maximum penalty of 10 years.
Wow.
All for smuggling turtles.
Because it says that Zhu regularly deals in turtle shipments worth $30,000, $80,000, or $125,000.
What?
The U.S. District Attorney, the Assistant U.S. District Attorney said.
Oh my!
Wow.
We are in the
so
wrong
that was
business.
a great
Yeah.
mugshot, wasn't it?
That was a good story.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
How our prison inmates decided? We're like, I think your 2 personalities really mesh well together.
There's like a prison
There's
cellmate.
a questionnaire.
Yes.
It's like eHarmony where it's like, I think you're like 95%
compatible. Or it's like the dorm room questionnaire you have to fill out in college. Like, do you like to study at night? What time do you go to bed?
How early do you wake up?
Yes. Do you like to listen to music loud in your
Allergic to any
dorm?
tree nuts? Do you smuggle turtles in your pants? I don't know. How many people have you killed?
My gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Well, should we tell the listeners how to find us?
Yes.
On the social media?
On the socials.
You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Hot Cup Cold Case Podcast. We're also on YouTube. Or you can email us at hotcupcoldcasepodcast@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you, whether it's just saying hi or suggesting cases for us. We are also collecting personal stories from anyone who's had a criminal encounter that we could share on the podcast. I think all of us have some personal stories that we're going to share in later episodes. So we're going to be collecting those stories and sharing those later. So if you have a criminal encounter or a criminal story, please submit it. We would love to hear it. And also, please, please, please rate us.
Yes.
Rate us.
And leave comments or reviews. That's what they're called.
And be kind. Please remember, we're new.
Or you could be honest too.
No, don't be honest.
No,
Go
be
easy on
honest.
us.
No, that's true. I take that back.
I can't handle honesty.
No, redact that.
If you want to be honest, can you just make sure you put Kelsey's name first?
Yeah,
and be
I can
kind
handle
to
it.
her?
I can totally handle it.
If you ever need your mug filled,
Or your spine chilled.
this is Hot Cup.
Cold case.
Nailed it.
Okay. Get out of this bitch. She's like, I'm dying.
Oh man, you're gonna have to edit out all this smacking.
All this chewing.
So much smacking.
Unless we just end the podcast with some ASMR.
No,
it's
gross.
disgusting.
It's a mukbang. But it's like the podcast kind.
You would think that would have started in America. Doesn't that
You
seem
really do
like an
think-
American thing to do?
It does.
Eating mass amounts
Of food in front of people.
while talking about
Whatever.
anything. I love how we're talking about how ridiculous it is as we eat things while talking into a microphone.
Yeah,
Also about
but they
nothing.
can't see us, so that takes away a third of the shame.